Today is August 30th, International Day or United Nations Day for the victims of enforced disappearances, which means this day is against enforced disappearances. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Amina Masood Janjua, who's the Chairperson of Defense of Human Rights in Pakistan. She herself is a victim of this crime, not just her husband who was disappeared in 2005, with another gentleman, Faisal Faraz.
My husband disappeared in 2005, July 30th. Our cases started in the Supreme Court because Chaudhry Iftikhar took the suo motu notice of my husband's disappearance. And that was the beginning of my organization. We laid the foundation of defense of human rights along with the victims of enforced disappearance.
There was a gathering in Islamabad. Amina was there, Imaan Mazari, who's a lawyer and who's representing various victims of enforced disappearances as well. Then there was a crackdown against PTM. Ali Wazir was arrested. Imaan Mazari was arrested. In January, Hina Rabbani Khar, while representing UPR, Pakistan's recent UPR, spoke of the commission. What is your take on this commission against enforced disappearances?
Unfortunately, it's been like 13 years since 2010 dragged to this commission, and we are forced to stand in a queue in front of this commission, which is hearing the cases of all Pakistan. And it's just a post office, I would say, where all the applications are dropped, and they are keeping a track. They are keeping the data and the files of all these, and that's the biggest service they are doing.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to New Wave Global. I'm Rabia Mahmood. Today is August 30th, the International Day or United Nations Day again for the victims of enforced disappearances, which means this day is against enforced disappearances, a heinous crime. It's also something which is colloquially in Pakistan known as a missing persons issue. We know that for a fact that in Pakistan, while these were happening in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, we saw an escalation and a very strategic, cynical use of enforced disappearances as a tool by state authorities after 2001, when General Musharraf used this in as a cover for war on terror. Having said that, today we have a very special guest with us. We have Amina Masood Janjua, who's the chairperson of Defense of Human Rights in Pakistan. It is a non-profit trust which works and campaigns against enforced disappearances and also documents this crime in the country. Amina is a rights defender and a campaigner against this crime, and also happens to be from the families of the disappeared herself, which means that according to international law, people like Amina, she herself is a victim of this crime, not just her husband who was disappeared in 2005, with another gentleman, Faisal Faraz. How we understand enforced disappearance in the country, why we know so much about it now, is because of the work like activists and family members like Amina, but also so many others in Balochistan, in Sindh, and in groups in Karachi and elsewhere. We have a number of informal or formal collectives which are basically have been formed by families of the disappeared or largely communities which have been affected by it, which includes the Shia, which includes the political activists of different parties, but mostly of MQM. All of these people are frontline campaigners against this crime. So Amina, thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to speak to you. We want to understand because when your husband was disappeared in 2005, initially you were recovering from it, as we've like spoken to you so many times on Neador, and people have read about you. You then started Defense of Human Rights, as a formal sort of organization and a collective. And you're a lawyer yourself now, and you have seen so many Supreme Court justices and so many governments over the year, and you're still documenting enforced disappearances happening in the country, because there have been thousands and thousands of cases. Can you tell us something about how enforced disappearances have only increased in the country and your work on against this crime?
Thank you so much, Rabia. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. And as you said yourself, that I'm a victim as well as turned into an activist. So my husband disappeared in 2005, July 30th, along with his friend Faisal Faraz. And since that day, I have never looked back. So our cases started in the Supreme Court because Chaudhry Iftikhar took the suo motu notice of my husband's disappearance. And that was the venue when we started filing other cases as well. And that was the beginning of my organization. We laid the foundation of defense of human rights along with the victims of enforced disappearance. So there were mothers, daughters, wives, and they were running pillar to post, and they had no clue as to what they should do and where they should go. Since that was the time of the Pervez Musharraf and it was a dictatorial regime, so our freedoms or freedom of expression or everything was curbed. And of course, there was a judicial crisis at that time. So over the years, I had no idea that it's going to be that big a struggle. I had to, go on for years and years, and it's now 18 years now and still going. That I had seen like more than four governments which have changed, four regimes which have changed, and there are, I think, around eight to nine chief justices who have been changed. I think more than 4 to 5 chief of army staffs who have been changed. So this it's a long struggle and still going on. And the response of the governments which I have come across, first it was the dictator Musharraf, then it was the People's Party and the Dari regime. After that, it was the PML-N and Mr. Nawaz Sharif came, and then again Mr. Imran Khan, PTI, and lastly it was PDM, the coalition of all 11 parties. So it was like a bit like up and down going on, but still it was going on. I'm really shocked at this states' negligence and states, they have no political will to resolve this issue. What we have been facing is just the lip service. They come to our camps, they sit with us, they cry with us, but they don't do anything. There was a law which was tabled in the last PTI regime. We had high hopes that it's going to be passed, but unfortunately, it's just got lost in the diploma in the parliamentary maze. We can hardly trace it down where it is and what are the changes which have been made in that. So there are other governments which are about to come because we are heading towards elections, and now it's a caretaker regime. So I really fail to understand why this burning issue, which now touches not just one province, but it's equally touching each and every region, ethnicity, religion, culture, and across the borders of Pakistan, like starting right down from the Gwadar, to it's starting the Khyber Pass, right next to the to Kabul. So each and every segments of society are being touched. Lawyers are disappeared, activists are disappeared, human rights campaigners are disappeared, and of course, religious scholars are disappeared, and students are disappeared. Recently, there's a wave from Balochistan in which students are getting disappeared from various universities. So, and teachers are disappeared, doctors, scientists. My own husband was a businessman. He was a very elite person. He was running 3 businesses and 2 IT colleges and a fashion design college. What was the point of disappearing him? And his friend Faisal Faraz was a mechanical engineer from Lahore, one from a very elite family. So, I mean, really, we are left with no other choice but to continue our struggle, which we are doing through campaigns, through international solidarity, networking with the local organizations. Of course, as you mentioned yourself, that they are Pakistan has a rich culture and a history of not giving up in front of injustices and oppression. Similarly, there are many organizations from Balochistan, from Sindh. It is Sindh Sabha, and there's Surat Lohar. She's a very brave girl. Then there's Sami Baloch, which is another
Voice of
brave girl from
missing persons.
Balochistan. And there are people from Karachi and from Muhajir missing persons. And similarly, there's an ethnicity Shia missing persons. There's an organization. And similarly, from Punjab also, there's Hukuk-e-Khalq movement, and there are many student forums which are working for the enforced disappearance. And then Defense of Human Rights, because my organization is an umbrella which is spreading its wings on across Pakistan from one end to another, and we voice for everyone. We voice for every Pakistani, and even beyond any Pakistani which is trapped, which is imprisoned, which is in crisis beyond the borders of Pakistan. We also raise voice and take up their cases as well.
Yeah,
So
Amina,
and
thank you for
Pashtun Tahaffuz movement, I cannot not mention the Pashtun
yeah.
Tahaffuz. Yes, please.
You were just there at their conference, and we saw what happened after that. We saw like a number of cases, because this has just happened, that there was a gathering in Islamabad. Amina was there, Imaan Mazari, who's a lawyer and who's representing various victims of enforced disappearances as well. And then we saw Ali Wazir, who's a former parliamentarian affiliated with with PTM, which is a not an NGO, which and not a political party. But then there was a crackdown against PTM. Ali Wazir was arrested. Imaan Mazari was arrested, which kind of reflects what has been happening in the country, that um, people are forcibly disappeared for various number of reasons. These could be short-term enforced disappearances and long-term enforced disappearances. Long terms are the ones like, Amina's husband, who hasn't returned yet, and there are no answers about his fate and whereabouts, and so many others like Dr. Deen Mohammed, who's Sami Baloch's father, another very well-known activist, and Faisal Faraz, the gentleman she's talking about. What we're trying to say is that then you have short-term enforced disappearances, which have escalated in Pakistan. Pakistan specifically, when it comes to activists and
Yeah,
students, that has been on the rise. Sometimes these are arbitrary detentions turned disappearances. Sometimes these are disappearances turned into detentions and arrests. But we've been seeing that
yeah,
happening. And when there are no disappearances, what we see is repression and stifling of the dissent around this issue. So protesters from
yeah,
families of the disappeared, their protests are attacked. Police uses disproportionate force or unjust force, arrests people, rounds them up. Women from families of the disappeared have been dragged across the roads in Karachi, Islamabad, and Quetta, and where not. Students are baton charged they were baton charged in Islamabad, and all governments are complicit when it comes to this, and all law enforcement authorities of all provinces across the country are complicit in this crime. So it's not just the perpetrators, the real perpetrators, who are the
yeah,
military and security establishment, intelligence agencies, but these are also the paramilitary forces, the police, and various other departments of the police, including the CTD and others, which are very much complicit in the crime of enforced disappearances and crimes and repression, which is linked to the issue of enforced disappearances. I've gone on for a bit, but I just wanted to add this to what Amina was saying. And that's what's happening in Pakistan. She was at the protest, and then Imaan and Ali Wazir, Imaan Mazari, they're still arrested. There have been like a string of FIRs against them, and they are being, it's punitive. It's fairly very obvious that what the state is doing. It's taking punitive measures to scare, to put some fear into these brave activists, so that they don't show solidarity with each other as well. Like Amina was there as an act of solidarity. I just wanted to
yeah,
also ask you this question, because you've spoken about the governments and various governments being super insincere. They come to your camps when they are not in power, and sometimes when they're in power as well, they haven't done anything. You're very right about the criminalization of enforced disappearances. That bill, which went missing in courts during the PTI government, then it went missing during the PDM government's time, and now we have the caretaker government, so we don't know what's going to happen. How
yeah.
the state keeps on using this excuse of the Commission against enforced disappearances. In January, Hina Rabani Khar, while representing Pakistan at the UPR, Pakistan's recent UPR, spoke of the Commission. All documents Pakistan submits to the United Nations and elsewhere, because the country has various international obligations, speaks of this commission as some sort of a solution to this crime. And this commission, we've spoken to you and other very senior activists and families of the disappeared, they think it's a complete failure. What is your take on on this commission against enforced disappearances?
Unfortunately, it's been like 13 years since 2010 that we are just dragged to this commission, and we are forced to stand in a queue in front of this commission, which is hearing the cases of all Pakistan. And it's just a post office, I would say, where all the applications are dropped, and they are keeping a track. They are keeping the data and the files of all these, and that's the biggest service they are doing. As from it, if you see the optimistic side of this, the other side, the pessimistic side, is this, that their own mandate has not been respected. It was in their mandate to hold inquiries and hold accountable the persons who are involved in enforced disappearance. And according to the chairman, Justice Javed Iqbal, that he has a list of 153 perpetrators against whom they have never taken a single step. They have never been charged of this crime. There have been no FIR against them. So they are not acting upon their own TORs. Then they say that out of 10,000, their numbers are almost nearly 10,000. And out of this, we have just, nimta the is the word they use. So it means that we are just left with 2,500, and which is a very minimum number. It's a great service we are doing, because 7,500 have been, but what happened to them? Many have died, and they are saying the case is resolved. Many have been just struck off, and they are just told that you are not disappeared, you don't have any evidence, so it's not a case of enforced disappearance. Then there are many who are dumped in internment centers. In the tribal territories, at times there were 40, but now there are as many as 12 internment centers which are still working, where the people are, when their status is changed, they are no more disappeared, but they are dumped in the internment centers, which are equally bad. And it's so difficult for the families to get in touch with their loved ones, to have meetings over there. And there are very strict conditions. There's torture going on over there. And then almost they are as bad as disappeared. But the commission has struck them off from their accounts. So they say that they are resolved. But in fact, the families are still suffering. They are running pillar to post. They don't know what to do. Mostly dead bodies are coming out of those internment centers. There's no due process of law. So it's a kind of Guantanamos which are existing in Pakistan. And people are very less aware of these internment centers, which have no legal basis, because when there was a sunset clause to army courts, and it ended, so there was end of these internment centers, but they are still existing. So
and Amina, you have worked with such parents, right? They're part of your network, whose children basically came back from internment centers as their dead bodies returned, right? Over the years.
Yeah, exactly. People are in my organization. I have there are office bearers who are actually the parents of those disappeared, or sons of the disappeared, brothers of the disappeared, sisters of the disappeared, who are working with us, because we have converted these activists into activists, so that they can become, they can overcome their grief, and they can be more constructive. They can, because they have gone through the grief. and they know how grave it is. It is easier for them to understand and work for it than just a layman who doesn't know what the grief of having a disappeared loved one is. So there's a father which I really want to mention because his son died and his dead body was handed over to him, Amir Saab. And he is such a brave man and such a committed person that even after the death of his son, he's still with us and he's working with us. And he says that no matter if my son is dead, that all the others disappeared are also my sons. So this is the kind of commitment people have for this issue. When they have known this grave violation, when they have known a loved one who has expired or who is still disappeared, and like there are many sisters, this Gulnaz in Swat, who is also a very staunch supporter of defense of human rights and a member of defense of human rights. She regularly takes out campaigns and demonstrations, and at many points they have been arrested. The same which is Imaan is going through. What's the crime of Imaan? Because she stood up for the disappeared. She's fighting the cases of the disappeared in the Islamabad High. Out of so many cases, she's the only one who is available. Not everyone signs up for the cases of the disappeared. She's the one who feels the empathy, and she stood up for them. And of course, because she's young and she, there not everybody can be as has control over their emotions as many. So she's young and she was very aggressive in his extraction. And that was the point when there were FIRs which were registered against her and Ali Wazir and many activists. And we were together on the container. We were all sitting together the whole day. We were together.
When you said that Imaan is young and she's a lawyer and an active human rights defender, but also people are punished for their political expression where they're not inciting anyone. They're just giving their views against state violence and showing solidarity with different groups, as all of you went to show solidarity with PTM. You've done solidarity, showed solidarity with the Sindhi collectives in Karachi and Islamabad and the Baloch. And when that happens, that is frowned upon by the state authorities because that's what they're scared of. They don't want people to come together.
That we will unite. They're scared that we will unite and will be one big cause across Pakistan.
Yes,
the Baloch, the Pashtun, the Punjab, the Siraiki, the Shia, the Kashmiris, and the Sindhis, and everybody would unite and they will start asking for their rights in one voice. That's what they are afraid of.
And that's what you're trying to do. Can you tell us something about how do you keep going? This is our last question briefly. How do you find the courage to keep going and leading others? Because you're leading others as well. I
don't think so. There's anything which I have done with my own efforts. It's just God's gift, I would say. But yes, I feel motivated. The more I see atrocities, tortures, grievance, the more motivated I become. It's something, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I feel that way. Whenever people are more aggrieved, I become much more motivated to even work harder, even struggle harder for it. And when people come back, because out of 3,000 cases of defense of human rights, we have been able to unite almost 1,300 cases, resolve 1,300, in which above 600 have been recovered and they are released and they are at home. So when people are united with their families, that's the biggest reward I
Thank you for joining us, Amina, and for your hopeful words at the end, and the fact that thank you for everything that you do and other families of the disappeared who don't have to be so brave. People do not have to be so brave, but they are in Pakistan. And I must add that it's the women across the country who are leading these campaigns, and they are on the roads, they're online, and they are sort of, they're just like carrying forward fearlessly, and they have so many people have put their lives on hold, their lives get put on hold, and just for campaigning for the release of their loved ones. But while yes, those who return, it's great that they return and come back to their families. In Pakistan, there has been no accountability for cases
Yeah.
of enforced disappearances. No one has ever been held to account per the United Nations, per all of these organizations which work in Pakistan, and from what we know. And there is no justice, no accountability, and no answers when it comes to this crime. And on this note, thank you for watching New Wave Global. Thank you for taking the time out to listen to Amina's story. We'll come back to you with more stories on human rights and social justice concerns in Pakistan and across the world. Khuda Hafiz.